This is Damian Macy, representing the Friends of the Marshall Public Library in our Oral History Project. Today is Wednesday, June the 14th, and I have with me at the library Mr. Tom Jones, who's got some interesting stories to tell us, I think, and being a retired teacher, he may even have some interesting stories about school. So with that, Tom, you're on.
Okay, I was born December 12th, 1940 at home, in a farmhouse north of Denison. Lived there for a few months with my parents, and then my dad, who was a boilermaker and a shipbuilder, went to New Orleans, and we were in New Orleans for a while as he worked in the shipyards building naval vessels, World War II.
You might just mention your parents' name also.
Yeah. My dad's name's Harold R. Jones, and my mother was Martha May Yealy. Interesting point there is my dad married Martha May Yealy, and his sister married Martha's brother John. So I have a number of double cousins, and we had exactly the same grandparents, and we've been close over the years. Sometimes it's too close, because I've had 3 broken collarbones, and 2 of them were inflicted by cousins.
Ouch.
The interesting thing about the one was they wrapped me up in a blanket and rolled me down over the hill, pretty steep hill, and broke my collarbone. And I thought my aunt was going to eat them alive. She was really angry at them because they used a new blanket. Hadn't realized that part that I had a broken bone.
And what age were you at that time?
Oh, I probably 5 or 6, something like that.
So you rolled pretty easily then.
Yeah, it wasn't a real big hill, but it was pretty steep, and it's one where the cattle walked on, so it was rough. It was kind of a bouncing rip down there. First time it happened, he and I were bouncing on the bed, and he bounced me off. Butch Healy bounced me off. Third one I managed to do by myself.
Now that was, you didn't have a trampoline back then either, did you?
No, we didn't have trampolines back then. Had a lot of fun though, nonetheless. My mother died when I was 3 years and 3 days old, and she died in childbirth. My sister died then too. So I lived with my grandparents on my father's side quite a bit. My mother's mother died about 3 months after she did. So I got to spend a lot of time with my maternal grandfather, but of course I barely knew my grandmother, and I really don't remember my mother that much. Dad remarried, and I have 2 brothers, half-brothers, Terry and Bruce. They went into boilermaking like my dad was a boilermaker and my grandfather was a boilermaker. Dad also farmed some, and he was out on a big construction job when I was 13, so I did all the farming that year. He come home weekends and lay out the work for me, and that was my week.
To-do list.
Yeah. It was really hard to get machinery during World War II, and after the war was over, Dad bought a new International M tractor, a cultivator, a 4-wheel planter, a 10-foot disc, and I think a plow.
Wow.
It was all new stuff, and it came to a total bill of $1,800. You'd get more for the scrap metal on that today. But things have definitely changed on that.
Is he able to buy that from a local dealer here in Marshall?
I don't know if we bought it here in Marshall or in Terre Haute. I don't remember which place that was from. And when he quit farming and sold out, he sold that tractor to a relative that lived up on the prairie. And somehow that relative sold the tractor, and we've lost track of it. I would like to get it back and restore it. But I put a lot of hours in on that tractor. And being a kid, I would pop the muffler off of it. And Dad could hear it clear in the house whenever I was running back on the backside of the place. So, maybe that's why I wear hearing aids today. My first grade school was in Denison, and there were 3 first graders. There was some second graders, third graders, fourth graders, fifth graders, sixth graders, 1 7th grader, and 2 or 3 8th graders. And the teacher didn't want to teach just one person for the 7th grade, so they took the 8th grade first. And then next year she made her go back and take 7th grade. That was Mrs. Kelly. And her husband was our preacher. And one time I was a little too ambitious, and she said, if you don't straighten up, I'm going to go to Mr. Kelly and have him give you a paddling. And I looked her straight in the eye and said, he wouldn't do that. He's my preacher. That ended that conversation.
It sounds like you have some fond memories of that one-room school probably that you were working on.
Yeah, it was nice. Marshall schools consolidated the next year, and we got to sign a Rio school bus. We had a Rio and a Ford, I think, that time, and that Rio was so slow, you almost had to stay off stakes to see it move. It was a long, long day. The time they got everything ran around. The next year they bought a used Ford V8. It was a lot faster. But, went to school at South School for 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade. 5th grade was in the Ohio School building. The main thing I remember about that one is we were playing baseball, and one of my classmates took a big swing with the ball bat and popped the catcher in the teeth and knocked his front teeth out.
Gee, that's smart.
And I still see them every once in a while.
Going back to that time just a minute for that one-room school. I know you didn't have a cafeteria. You didn't have central heating or cooling or any of that stuff. What are some memories that you have of that building in some of the classes?
Well, I lived with my grandparents at the time about a mile from the school. And 2 of the older girls in the school lived farther out. And as they walked by, I would join them and walk to school. We all had recess together because there wasn't that many kids all together. Had a great big old potbelly stove back in the corner. And it was just pretty good. 2 outhouses, his and hers. Had a well outside. We could use that. And one of the fun things was there was a gentleman who lived in town who still had a horse and buggy. And they, at Halloween, they got his buggy and took it apart and put it up on top of the neighbor's garage and put it back together. He kind of stormed around town looking for it and wasn't having luck. And when he finally spotted it, he charged right into the school and demanded that all the older boys come out and get his buggy down. And that happened.
Now, was that from the Denison School? Or
As the Denison School, yeah.
He had a good inkling then where
Yeah,
skullduggery came from.
Yeah, and I'm not going to mention the names of the person involved because one of them's a neighbor yet. His son. Yeah, we had a good time, and we didn't know any better that it wasn't the best of times.
I've heard this mentioned. I did not go to the one-room school, but my wife did. That so many times that recitation of the older classes, though, you were sitting back here, and osmosis or what, that they really absorbed a lot of that advanced information earlier in their years.
And the 2nd and 3rd graders did a lot of teaching or reading to the 1st graders. And that worked for both groups. help both groups on that. So yeah, we did that a lot.
As a retired teacher, that may not have been all bad either, huh?
No, I don't think so. It was good for what we had. One of the odd things about it was my grandmother had asked, what should we have him do before he comes to school? What should he learn? And they said, nothing. We'll teach him everything in school we want. Don't teach him to do anything because it may not be the way we do it. So there's no such thing as preschool or kindergarten like that. You want in dumb.
At recess, how did you spend your time there? Do you remember?
Oh, a lot of tag and what is it where you throw the ball over the roof of the building?
And
Run
Andy
around.
over?
Yeah, Andy over. A lot of that over the coal shed. Which was right on the road, so one of the groups almost had to be out on the road, but didn't make any difference, wasn't any traffic. Like I said, in 5th grade was the Ohio Oil Building had been converted into a school, which is now, I think, Central Administration Building. And 6th grade was at North School. Then for 7th grade, junior high, we went out to where the high school building. And part of our classes were in the high school building, and part of them were in a junior high building. Well, part of them were in the old high school, and part of them were in the newer high school. But the old high school is then considered a junior high building. That was a good experience. Went out for track and found out I was a fast runner compared to other people. And I got a high point score for track. And Coach Heaton looked at me and said, "You're going to be a back on the football team." So when I went out for football, I'd never seen a football game. I had never seen a football game. And we got a lot of experience because that was a good time to be on the football team. Ron Murphy, John Booth, John Kirby, Arnie Garwood, Johnson, what was Johnson's name? Johnson. Irvin Johnson. All a bunch, it's a strong group of people, and of course Charlie Booth was wanting to see a good football team, with his son being there, quarterback, and in our freshman and sophomore year we got a lot of experience. Our sophomore year we played a fresh soft game, a JV game, and all of us were also on the varsity. So we played 3 football games a week. And by the time we were seniors, we were a pretty strong unit.
Yeah, pretty strong.
And we went through the year undefeated. And probably the most memorable thing on that was up at Charleston. We had a line coach named George Gaddis, and he ran about an inch off the ground, and he taught some of the guys how to do that. And he had John Kirby going through the legs of their center, which weighed about 350 pounds, and getting the quarterback before he could move away with the ball. And their coach charged into our locker room at halftime and said, "If you don't get that kid to quit doing that, I'm going to have their center fall on him and crush him." The coaches looked at him and said, "He's too fat to fall that fast. He can't get that."
He wasn't doing anything against the rules, was he?
No.
Okay.
But he'd be there and have that guy's ankle before he could take away from them. And it was a fun season. 1958 was a good football year. Unfortunately, nobody will ever see any of those games again because when they cleaned out the files, they burned all the tapes. I always kind of wondered if it wasn't by design.
Never know.
But anyway, that's what happened on that.
What was your favorite subject in high school?
Social studies.
What did you like the least?
English. My locker was right outside Mrs. Geiger's Geyser's door, and teachers always came to the door and stood there and feel dismissed. And she said, "Tom, if you take that English book home tonight and look at it, you might make better grades." And since she watched me get stuff out of my locker every night, I took it home every night. I carried it back to school every morning. And my grades improved.
Just by carrying it, or did you open it?
Just by transportation.
Oh, okay. You absorbed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife taught English, but Mrs. Geiser was her, I guess, her mainstay and her favorite teacher.
Well, I liked her. No question about that. I just didn't like the subject.
The subject.
And the other English teacher was can't think of her name right now. But she did a lot of working with Latin root words. And man, did that ever help me in the long run. That was really, really valuable. And that, I didn't really like school very well until I was about a junior. I got to be a junior. I thought
It changed.
it's time to get busy. And I got interested in reading sports books out of the library, and I read every single book in the Marshall High School library on sports. And I've got to be a pretty fast reader. When I was in college, we had a machine that measured reading speeds and gave a comprehensive thing. And I could outread the machine and still get a perfect paper. That came in handy in college.
Oh, I bet it did.
So,
What year did you graduate from school, Tom? My school?
high school, 59. I I was accepted over at Indiana Central College, which is now University of Indianapolis. My dad was working on the power plant in the dam at Page, Arizona, when they're building that big lake out there. And he said, if you want any help from me, you're going to have to come out to Arizona and go as an in-state student. I'm not going to pay out-of-state tuition. So I went to Arizona State in Tempe, beautiful, beautiful campus, and started out in a solid-state engineering, solid-state chemistry, which is really transistors. But I'd never taken trigonometry. I had all the other math courses here. But they didn't teach any courses like that. They had a remedial class that was college algebra and trigonometry thrown together. And this was right after Sputnik. And our college professor was a brilliant man, but he was on loan to NASA. And he was only in class about one day every 2 weeks. And the other days, some graduate student would show up.
And didn't get very far.
And by the time that class was over, I decided I was going to be doing something else besides solid-state chemistry. Another interesting thing was our chemistry professor had decided that the periodic table was wrong, and he had drawn up a new one, and we were to use his table, which made some interesting chemistry. But I then switched to political science curriculum because I always liked social studies and sociology. The college was mandated at that time to flunk out 25% of the freshmen because so many people were in school just to avoid a draft. And as a result, I had to take upper level classes before I took the fresh soft classes. And I made better grades in the upper level classes than I did in the fresh soft classes. But I worked for an aerocrop nesting outfit, and some on a ranch, some out there. And I lived at home. Decided since I was paying my own tuition going to school, I could come back to Illinois and Indiana. So I came back and lived with my grandparents again for a while. and then part-time intermittent room in Terre Haute, and went a year at Indiana State. And then I spent a summer as a intern in the Attorney General's office in Springfield, my uncle's first assistant Attorney General, and lived with him. And then after that, I got a job in Indianapolis and started going to night school at Indiana Central College. And went several years in night school, working full-time in a school supply house. And then Jan and I got married June the 8th, 1962.
1962, good year.
And I went, she got a teaching job, and I went in a full-time school and finished up.
In Indianapolis.
Those years don't come out right. Anyway, I graduated then a couple of years later. It took me 6 years to get through college doing it that way. But I started working for J.C. Penney in management trainees, and worked there for several years. And J.C. Penney died, and the motto of Penney changed from "your satisfaction is your guarantee" to "your satisfaction is our goal." And I was seeing every Saturday and Sunday working, and decided it was time to change.
Was that at a store in Indianapolis,
Yes.
or was it in a management office
No,
somewhere?
I was in Indianapolis in a store.
In the store.
Yeah. I worked in every department in that store on a rotating basis, learning things except the shoe department. I decided to go into teaching then, because I had a teaching degree. I had done my student teaching in Wood High School in downtown Indianapolis. We had a 10-foot chain link fence with raised-wire on top of it for a parking lot for teachers. Had a policeman on every door. You were not allowed in the hallway, period, except during passing periods. And that was walking on the right side of the hall with no talking.
With no talking?
No talking. It had like an 80% dropout rate in that school. It was a tough, tough part of town. One day, 3 boys got in trouble, and the principal was going to expel them. And his nickname was Big Daddy. And they decided, since they was getting expelled anyway, they was going to make it worth their time. They took off after him, and he just reached behind his desk and pulled out one of these little miniature ball bats, and he worked them over. Then he expelled them. It was tough. That school had 2 departments that was really good. One of them was auto mechanics, and I think the other one was in laundry, dry cleaning and stuff like that. It did have accelerated classes, and I got all accelerated classes as a student teacher to work with, so that I didn't have to deal with those problems.
Thank goodness, huh?
Yeah. But the school didn't, I mean, they did a lot of recombining and took care of a lot of things. And a lot of it had to do with, ending segregation.
With that kind of environment and jumping into teaching in it, did you ever say, oh gosh, this isn't for me, and say, want to go back to Penny's or bail out?
No, because, like I say, I worked with the elite students.
Okay.
And we had, there was 20-some teachers there that taught social studies, different kinds of social studies. And we had our own work area. And that's the group of people that I was with most of the time. Had a critic teacher with a super man. He was a black man, He had just come in there like a year or two before from Louisville, very, very conscious of problems that could result as him being a black man. And he attended every single extracurricular event that school had. The students loved him. He was super. He was really a good model.
It's a tough environment then to come into.
Yeah. I really liked him.
So how long did you teach then in Indianapolis?
I didn't teach in Indianapolis. I just did my student teaching there.
Oh, that was student teaching.
That was
Okay.
a semester student teaching, yeah. One of the things that I had really enjoyed when I was in college at Arizona was I was in Air Force ROTC. And had I stayed there, I would, in another year or so, I would have been taking basic and pilot training. They were taking, once they could run through that, and they were mainly heading to Vietnam as fighter pilots. And I really, really liked that, but we wore dress blues, and we had to go out on the parade field like 6 o'clock in the morning, and it'd be about 30 degrees, and your hands would about match your blue uniform. Well, then you went right into classes. The time you got out of classes at noon, it was about 80 degrees in those wool uniforms. It quite a temperature change on that.
So what brought you then from Indianapolis to Marshall? Back to Marshall?
Mainly family connections. We wanted to be closer to family, and had one child at that point. And I thought I'd teach maybe 10 years and do something else. But I liked it well enough, I hit the 35 mark. Well, actually, it's 34 years of teaching, and I carried over enough sick leave to count next year on the retirement. So it was
So your 35 years of teaching was at Marshall then?
yes.
All of them?
I started out teaching 6th grade math and science, and after a few years I got transferred into junior high and civics and American history and some consumer ed. And of course, civics is what I really liked. And I got to thank Charlie Bush for that, because he really pushed civics.
Have you kept track or followed through anything of the students you had to see how they've
You know,
excelled today?
One of the really nice things that you get to see is whenever you see one of your ex-students and you know, you remember them as 13 and 14-year-olds, and now they're really successful adults. And that's always a real pleasure.
Be rewarding,
Yeah.
I would think.
Very much so. I've got 2 granddaughters in the University of Indianapolis now. I'm glad to see them over there. One thing that Jan and I have done is we've traveled a lot. We've really enjoyed travel. We've hit all 50 states. We've been in 6 continents. Got one to go. We've done a lot of mission trips. Started doing that during Hurricane Katrina.
What year did you actually retire, Tom? Sorry.
15 years ago.
Okay.
62?
No.
No.
2002.
2002. 2002.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Yeah.
interrupt you,
Yeah, and it's unbelievable it's been that long. I really enjoyed teaching. I've really enjoyed not teaching. But we've been, I think, on 21 or 22 mission trips. And we've been averaging a little over 2 a year since we started doing that. And that's very rewarding to be able to go out and help where there's a real need. I don't want to go on any trips that are just where they make something for you to do so you can be there. You know, I want there to be a need there, and we've done that.
You mentioned your travels. Is there a particular spot that you could say, boy, that's at the top of my list, that you enjoyed the most?
My
or like
favorite national park is Zion.
Beautiful.
I really like Zion National Park. And we've always tried to take our grandkids with us as much as we can in the family. And they enjoy that. I've got one granddaughter whose bucket list is to hit every national park. She's working on that.
Good
And
for her.
I think that's great.
We've been working on it, but I think we've hit 40-some.
That's pretty good. But yeah, we've done that, and I've been involved in a lot of things besides the travel. That's been a bonus. I got the travel bug because my brother was in Arizona with grandparents. We went out there about twice a year to visit, and we always drove and got to see things. When I travel, I like to look around and observe the terrain. I don't want to get on an airplane and fly from here to some resort or some attraction, look at that, get back on a plane and fly back and not see the country. I enjoy seeing the country.
How about the interstate versus the side roads?
If I can make time for it, I'll take a side road instead of the interstate.
Me too.
I don't particularly like traveling interstates.
Yeah.
They're nice if you're in a hurry. But in fact, we're leaving to take a little trip down in Kentucky Lake this week, and we'll go down Route 1 and cross, we'll maybe be 20 miles on the interstate, and the rest of it will be side roads.
That's where you really see what the country's about.
Right.
Do you have a favorite state park? Because there's some beautiful state parks throughout the country too.
No, but I tell you, we take a camper a lot.
Okay.
And I've found that some of the nicest places to camp are state parks.
Yeah, amazing.
A lot of times they're out. I remember in Nebraska, we pulled in several of them, and they'd have a big metal culvert with a metal plate on top of the slot, and they'd have an envelope, and it'd say, put X number of dollars in and drop it in. And I remember one in particular that we pulled in late at night, and it said $2. And we pulled in and parked there, and next morning I woke up and there was this huge, beautiful lake out in front of us.
Wow.
They're just, you really see some nice things by.
Well, you mentioned Nebraska. Some people say, oh gosh, that's just a boring place. It's an amazing place if you just take time to stop and look at what's around you.
If you go through Nebraska or a place out there, you need to stop at every rest area because they'll have a big plaque as you exit telling you what to look for the next so many miles. And otherwise you'd miss most of it. And you go across there, you go from the tall grass prairie to short grass prairie, and it's all laid out for you. I read Centennial, and right after Centennial took a trip, and we went out Route 80 and just paralleled the route that Centennial went through there. And I was amazed how much stuff I could tie in with what I had read in Centennial. It made it a
And that's what makes it more interesting.
really enjoyable trip to do that.
Do you ever watch on the program Rick Steves travel?
A little bit, but not a whole lot.
Several times we have watched that, not regularly, but he's been to places we've been, and I guess that's what made it so interesting. Oh yeah, remember we stood right there.
Yeah.
It makes it interesting, the fact that you've seen that.
Yeah, I really enjoy traveling in the United States more than I do I like to see other parts of the world, but I really enjoy seeing our country more. And, there's all kinds of historical things you can tie into it, and if you take the time.
Tom, with your traveling, and you kind of started that, it sounds like, almost even before you were completely retired. Did you ever do a substitute teaching or say, hey, I would like to keep
Not a day.
Really?
Not a day.
That's interesting.
I made a liar out of myself once. The day I graduated from high school, I walked out of the high school door and I said, it's the last time I'll ever be in this building. But it didn't turn out that way. But when I walked out, when I retired, I said, I will not be back to substitute.
Okay.
And part of that is I just didn't feel like I'd accomplished as much as a substitute as I had as a teacher. I just thought it'd be a lot of wasted motion on my part. So I just didn't want to do it. And I was farming and expanding my farming, and that kept me fairly busy too. When our kids were younger, they did a lot in 4-H.
Yeah, wonderful
And
program.
we got started in sheep with them, and that evolved into a fairly big enterprise. We would buy feeder lambs and feed them out, and did quite a bit of that for a while. And I got into sheep shearing, and I think sheep shearing is the hardest work I've ever done. You're bent over the whole time doing it. And I really don't see how those guys do it full time.
Did you use the mechanical shears or the old?
Electric shears.
Yeah.
Yeah, I use electric shears. But it's a grueling job.
Did you ever have the opportunity to watch the herding of the sheep with the dogs?
I used dogs. I had 2 border collies,
Okay.
and they were. I had a kind of an open barn that I could rearrange panels in and change the patterns and things in the flow of the barn. And I'd take those dogs in there with me whenever I made a change. And by the 3rd day, they had figured out everything that was different and how to do it. And I know one man who spent $3,000 on a dog. He went overseas and got it.
Yeah.
He said that dog lets me not hire 3 men I'd have to have otherwise. They're that good, and need helping. But one of them in particular had a bad habit of chasing vehicles. He got hit once, but didn't slow him down any. But whenever we had pins for him, and normally when they weren't working, they were in their pen. But as we didn't use them as much, got cut down the number of sheep, we let them run out a little bit more. And every time he'd chase a car, I'd say, "Go to your pen." And he'd go get his pen. I'd lock him in there for a while. So I got to the place that he'd go chase a car and just turn around and go get in his pen.
They're real creatures of habit, aren't they?
So,
We saw some demonstrations when we were in New Zealand and all. It was amazing how a couple of dogs and the number of sheep, they just couldn't work them right where they wanted them.
I kind of grew up around working dogs. My grandfather always had collies for cattle. And, whenever we needed the cattle in, we'd just say, "Go get the cows." And boy, he'd take off down through there pretty soon, and they'd be coming up the lane, he'd bring them right in. Kind of expected that.
As a youngster, did you have some hobbies and maybe some that are even brought up and used today?
Well, no, not really. Of course, we got together. We rode cycles a lot. I had a Cushman scooter, and some of our friends had cycles, and we rode along. We'd get together and we'd have a ball game out in the lot out there north of the schoolhouse. But that was about it on that. When you live on a farm, you had chores to do. And I do remember when I got that scooter, I filled it with gasoline out of the farm tank. And Dad got concerned somebody might be tapping his gas tank until he figured out how many miles I was putting on that scooter. And that was rough, it cost about 15 cents a gallon, man.
Pricey.
At least it was good to know where it went.
You finally convinced Dad that there wasn't a culprit in the neighborhood?
Another thing about when I was a kid is, of course, World War II was going on. And I don't care what you was doing, if you heard an airplane, everybody bailed outside to see it. If it was middle of dinner or whatever, that was a big event. And we were on a flyway. We had some big planes go over where we lived there. And I always liked to see it. Always liked planes. Always kind of wished I'd taken pilot lessons, never did. Had an uncle who was a pilot, took me up, Bert Quinn, took me up when I was about 7 or 8. It's going to scare me. And he took that little cub up and did a dive down and tried to lift me up out of the seat. I thought it was great.
Didn't scare you a bit, did it?
I liked it, and I've always enjoyed flying when it's for pleasure, not for travel.
And you've obviously taken some commercial flights. How about your opinion of travel today?
I try to avoid commercial flights today. It's the last, it's going to rain. The last several flights I've taken have gotten progressively worse. So, I've always enjoyed driving.
I used to travel a lot on business, and it was kind of semi-enjoyable, but anymore it's a hassle. Everything is a hassle.
It is.
Tell looking back in school or just someone that you had association with, was there an individual or group of individuals who really you feel influenced you or you have really great memories about?
My grandfather Eli had a major impact on my life. He always exhibited a lot of wisdom, and he was a really good storyteller. And teaching-wise, I really enjoyed Charlie Kermit's classes. A lot of people didn't, but I did. And that kind of put me on my direction I went, I think, in teaching that. So, I've always been, thought you should do what you could for your community, and I think one of the things that I have put an awful lot of effort in and really got a lot of satisfaction from is being with the development of the water district. So I think it was 1985 when we had our first meeting about getting some water in the rural area, and went a few years as a steering committee and applied for a loan and grant from rural development to get going with the water district, and got a rejection letter. We didn't qualify at all. And there was a director there, Dwayne Massey, that was, he's the best bureaucrat I ever met in my life. He said, "Man, don't give up." He said, keep looking at this. And one of the best ways to get something done is just to be hard-headed and stay at it.
Now, what was that level? What was he at, or what? Is it agency in Springfield?
He was in Champaign. He was
Champaign?
head of the district up there in Champaign,
Okay.
on, overseeing these loans and grants. And he guided us tremendously on how to do things on that. And we got our first water line in the ground in '94.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that quite that far back.
Yeah. And I think it's really been an asset to the
Mhm.
community. Almost every water well that was tested did not meet safety standards, and this is as good a water as you can get now. I've been out of that for a couple of years now.
I was just getting ready to ask if you were still associated with the district.
No, after that many years as a steering committee and 25 years as chairman of the board, I thought it was time. We had met the objectives that I originally set out for. When we started, we had, they said we could take an area, a 10-mile circle around Marshall and serve that area. I said, fine, and I wanted to put in a well field. Oh, no, you can't do that. You have to, you have to get your water supply. So we got it from Marshall, and they really helped out. And Edgar Electric really helped a lot, too, on stuff. They did a lot of our meter reading and stuff like that to start with. But we just kept at it, and now then there's over 700 miles of water line, and probably need that much more.
Great. Now, how many wells do you have?
3.
Three. Now, where are they located? All pretty much in the same area? Or?
Yeah. Do you know where the old county gravel pit is?
Uh-huh.
Right north of it.
Okay.
And those wells are tremendous wells. They would produce somewhere around 4,000 gallons a minute, and they don't pump them over 700.
That's a lot of water.
Because they don't want to pull sand into it. But that aquifer is not affected by the river. The river is affected by the aquifer. and they said it has enough water in it to take care of a 75-mile radius around that aquifer, and it goes up the Wabash River through
Quite a geography.
through the year 3000. It's a good one.
You don't have to worry about them, do you?
No. I don't worry about it at all now.
Well, that's been a tremendous asset, I know, and I think it's encouraged a lot of beautiful new residences being built throughout the county too.
Yeah. Mr. Ross used to say the water district created one classroom of kids a year
I bet that's right.
because there were so many new houses being built. They did that for several years. And they all were good taxpayers, new homes.
Notch above. I imagine that's right.
Yeah, so it helped on that level too, for not just schools, but, you know, road funds and all county funds.
Now you have an office too, north of here, if I recall, which you didn't have obviously to start with.
We rented a room off of Francis and Associates because they were an engineering firm
Yeah.
to start with. I mean, it wasn't this big, and now then they have an office in Oliver,
Yeah.
and then down at the pump station there's a big building down there because of filters and things like that, and it has a meeting room and facilities in it. They still have most of their meetings at Oliver, but it's capable of doing it down there. That's, you know, I take a lot of satisfaction out of the fact that we were able to do that. And we put this water district in at the lowest cost per customer of any water district of this type in the state of Illinois. We took our time, we worked, we got a lot of grant money, and we didn't jump ahead of things, and a bunch of conservative farmers on the board. Just, you know, I think we did it the right way.
Just looking at it mechanically, here in town, there's a water meter. Most of those are automatically or electronically read anymore.
Mm-hmm.
How are the meters installed and read on your water district?
Well, the original ones were manual read meters.
Mechanical, yeah.
And they still are. But as we got farther along, started putting in the electronic read meters. And on those, you can just drive by
Right.
and read them. On the others, you have to get out of the vehicle and go over and open the lid. And it's probably full of water, so you got to put a sight tube down in it or pump it out.
I know what you mean.
But,
That's what I was wondering. With that number of miles and that much space, my gosh, that's a lot of meters.
it's a lot.
And they're
of
not very far close together.
No, that's the big difference between rural electric and rural water and being in town, is how far apart the meters are.
Okay.
You know, it's a lot cheaper to deliver water to 40 houses in a mile than it is 4 houses in a mile. So,
Tom, just to kind of go back a little bit to that teaching atmosphere. And you saw a lot of changes in education in that years that you were there. What were some of the most significant changes that you saw in teaching and education and before your retirement?
I think probably the biggest change is we went from a generation of givers to a generation of what's in it for me.
Unfortunately.
I think the thing I see now is I think we see swinging back a little bit to more community interest and giving.
If you were to go back, would you follow the same career path and go into teaching again?
I think I would, yes. Yeah, well, you know, Jan and I both taught when the kids were out of school, we were out of school. So we had this wonderful opportunity of doing things as a family. And it has been really good. And since we have retired, we have also been able to kind of continue the thing for the family. Our grandkids from Bloomington when they were little, we'd meet halfway, and we'd get grandkids for 3 days, and then we'd go back and meet their parents, and they'd get them for the 4 days over the weekend, and we'd meet again, and we got to really have a lot of good times that way. And like I said, we take a lot of joint vacations. For our 50th anniversary, the whole family went to Alaska.
That's a great place, isn't it?
And we really enjoyed that. And
Were you on a cruise?
we flew up and cruised back.
Okay.
Then we've had another one where we spent year end in Mexico in a resort area. The whole family got to go on that. And we try to do some kind of things. And we've taken another family vacation where we loaded up in 3 vans and we toured the West. And it's been great to be able to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
So,
What was the biggest change you saw, though, in that period of education? You said, you mentioned the thing with give me and the take. How about mechanically? The things of computers and all anymore just absolutely floor me what's in the grade schools.
yeah, of course, we had a computer in the classroom, and we kept grades on it, and we could look things up on it, things like that. But we didn't have the whiteboards and all of the things that I see in the classrooms today. I think I was just there on the leading edge of the technology revolution. We had the old 16 millimeter projectors and the film strip projectors, and that all faded away, and it's just I've seen tremendous change since I.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, my grandkids have things that in the classroom I've never dreamed of. In a way, I'm glad I don't have to learn them now.
Maybe that's a good reason to say I'm glad it's all back there, huh?
Well, there's just a general change in attitude, in society. The relationship between parents and schools has totally changed. It's just, like I say, it goes back, I think, to that time where we, as a nation, went through an era where we thought, I've got to give everything for me that I can do for me.
It just seems to me like there's a total lack of maybe respect for authority, teachers, police, anyone.
Well, it's not just authority. It's just there's no longer respect of person.
Yeah, that bothers me.
It bothers me. It bothers me.
I don't think it's going to get any better either, unfortunately. Doesn't seem like
People's working on civility now. I mean, you hear people talking about it. It's becoming an awareness. So, hopefully, I suppose you've heard the news today.
About the shooting
Yes.
in the Washington area.
We don't understand governance is compromise anymore.
That sounds like the real thing. But at least when I was growing up, you might hear about that about the next day or 2 days later. Now, it's almost the instant it happens.
But I remember as a kid, no matter who was president, you respected that person for the office.
Right.
And I know exactly when that changed for me. And that was Watergate.
Yeah.
And I've had, I still have a great deal of respect for the government and the office, but it's not as total as pure as it used to be.
That's a good word, good adjective. Good adjective to use. Was there something, event in history and all that you really is vivid in your memory or may have changed your thinking?
Taking my GRE exam. We went out on break and heard that Kennedy had been assassinated. No one did so well that afternoon.
But that's right.
Yeah, I thought we were at probably our golden era during that time frame. And it all
Camelot or
changed.
whatever you want to call it.
It all changed.
Where were you? I mean, physically at that time, was it?
I was over at University of Indianapolis
Okay.
taking my GRE. And if I remember right, we were taking that in an upstairs room in the library. And we came down for a break, and that was the news.
That's one thing I've heard, that almost everyone you talk to them, they remember where they were and what they were doing when that event took
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm reading, Dr. Turner got me on a book, Mrs. Kennedy and Me. You ever read that?
No, but
Can you
I've heard him mention that.
I'm about through with it, but it's not a fast read, but it's interesting and entertaining.
Is it from the library here? Or?
They had to order it for me.
Oh, okay.
So
No, I've heard that. I don't know. Jim Turner and I were talking about something one time, and he mentioned that book.
yeah.
He mentioned a couple of others. I don't think I wrote them down.
He has. It's really raining now. He has got me on several different books.
He's extremely well read.
He is.
Oh my gosh. I didn't bring a raincoat either. I bet you didn't either.
No, and I've got a whole bunch of stuff loaded up to haul down to Kentucky.
Ooh.
Beverly Douglas is moving down there, and we told her we would take some of her lawnmower and some stuff like that down for her. So it's a good excuse for me to get down there and spend a few days. So we're going to take it down, drop it off, and enjoy a few days.
At what part of Kentucky?
It's at Kentucky Lake, right around Kentucky Lake.
That's a nice place.
We have gone to the same campground on Kentucky Lake for about 45 years.
Oh my. You know every pebble in the drive then, don't you?
No, because it's all changed. It used to be just a big open point out in the lake, and now then almost everything is a permanent site there, and they've got porches built around their camp trailers, or not camp trailers, or their park models. And,
Land between the lakes also. So.
well, we're close to land between the lakes. We boat across about 3 or 4 miles from this big sandy beach, and we spend a lot of time there because you can walk out a couple hundred feet before you're over your head. It's great for kids, and we spend a lot of time operating out of there.
Oh, great.
So,
Well, Tom, it's been a delight visiting with you, and I think, as I said, everyone has a story, and I think you've really explained a lot of things and some reminiscing about. If one of your travels, say you were in France or London or somewhere, they said, "Where are you from?" You said, "I'm from Marshall, Illinois." They said, "What on earth, or where's that?" What would you tell them about Marshall and why it might be an interesting place to visit, or
Well,
maybe live?
you know, first thing I say I'm from Illinois, and they say, "Oh, Chicago."
Exactly.
But no, I like the small town atmosphere. And the Friday night band concerts, the sports. Everybody gets behind the kids in sports, 4-H. There's just a lot of things that bring people together,
Good.
and I like that. And, I lived in Arizona for a while, and believe it or not, I really missed the 4 seasons.
So I wouldn't care to live in Florida year round.
It's a nice place to visit for a while, but about 2 weeks is enough. We don't like to go anywhere much over 2 weeks. In fact, 10 days is kind of our limit on it.
Stretched it.
We like 10 days. But Marshall is just, now, if I didn't have a bunch of family here, I probably wouldn't have stayed here. I always said I was going to have a home on a lake or in the middle of a 40-acre field. But, the main thing I like about this area is it's not so densely populated. And I remember I used to leave here, Marshall, and drive home, which is north of Denison, and maybe see 1 or 2 cars.
See a few more than that today, though.
Today, I bet you see 40 or 50 cars in the same
And a few
trip.
trucks.
So, but it's still better than most places. You get tied up. We worked in Annapolis few months ago, and unfortunately we got in a situation where we were having to cross 4 lanes of rush hour traffic at an angle. To find a place where you could fit in on that without being at a stoplight was horrendous.
And to think you better check with your insurance agent.
That really made me appreciate.
Oh, yeah.
I really like living in Indianapolis because Indianapolis, I don't care what you want to do, there's some place in
Yeah.
Indianapolis where you can do that.
And it's relatively easy to get around in too. And,
But still, it's
a lot of people.
too many people. I really enjoy solitude.
Well, Tom, that's been great. I sure enjoyed visiting with you. As I said earlier, this is not for today or tomorrow, but somewhere someone's going to listen to this in the future, and that's what this is
I'm
for.
not too eager to have that in the paper.
You can say no if you like.
I like to operate in the background.